talk, is your product future-proof for supply chain? My name is Jenny Lynn, and I'll be the facilitator for today's session. So we have an action-packed 30-minute session with our panelists here. We have Mallory, who is our account executive. She'll be showcasing the demo. We also have Andrea, our PMM, as well as Mike Edgett, our Sage ERP PMM, and we have our founder for Sage Supply Chain Intelligence, Rodney. And with that being said, Rodney, can you please share kind of what is supply chain technology and your vision at Sage with how Sage Supply Chain Intelligence is fixing this space?
Yeah, thanks, Jenny Lynn, and hopefully everyone's doing well. So our vision of supply chain intelligence is pretty simple. We're looking at a source to deliver technology that changes the siloed manual natures of supply chain, truly unifying the entire process into one platform. So the days of working in your email, Excel, and working across the global supply chain with all different teams, suppliers, and not knowing what's happening, we're solving that. We really do that with three things. The first is a RFQ, request for quote module, simplifying the ordering process with new quotes. The second is order management, so tracking life from PO to when goods ship. And lastly, real-time logistics tracking. What we want to do is lower costs, develop faster cycle times, and really simplify the supply chain for our customers and for the market.
Awesome. Thank you, Rodney, for sharing. Now, just to kind of kick off our first panel question, I want to take it up a little bit, one notch higher for an industry trend. But what are the most significant trends shaping supply chain today? And maybe, Mike, you could take this one for us.
Sure, I can do that. So, yeah, let me take this really kind of more from the perspective of U.S. manufacturers. But honestly, probably what we're going to talk about here would be applicable to those in distribution or retail pretty much too. But, the typical challenge that, has to do with the volatility and uncertainty associated with sourcing. So, it just seems like what changes is just what is the cause of that uncertainty. So, in the recent past, we've had events such as Panama Canal closing, and of course, we all remember all the challenges that COVID resulted in. And then just simply, especially if you're in, say, maybe the food industry, you're just dealing with seasonality of supply itself. And currently, though, much of the unpredictability has more to do with some of the geopolitical risks that are going on. So whether it's, the China and US tensions or some of the challenges we've had in shipping channels, whether it's the Red Sea or where else, or even some of the critical material shortages. I was reading today about the latest things we're trying to do as it relates to shortages on rare earth that are rare earth minerals. So, and all of that's kind of a combination of the results of, wars and tariffs and all kinds of things going on. So, but maybe, maybe a little less dramatic and a little easier to plan around are some of the variable changing, but yet complex regulatory and compliance reporting requirements. So some of those, maybe decreasing a little bit in the US, even though some states have still got some pretty strict requirements there as it relates to compliance, but also those companies that are exporting, that's, certainly continues to be a big requirement. So whether that's, requirements to report on, certificates of origin or ESG or even, any other carbon reporting. And even you're seeing more and more requirements on how do you reporting on things like forced labor compliance. So all of those reporting requirements create new kind of challenges within your supply chain management. So
yeah, thanks for sharing that, Mike. Maybe we can hop on over to Rodney. Do you have any perspective on this one?
Yeah, I do. I have quite a few. I spent my career building supply chains from 0 to billions of units of goods, selling and moving globally. At Apple, at Heritage Grooming, and even prior to that. And really what I'm seeing today is three things. Number one is disruptions and resilience issues. So Mike just touched upon geopolitical risk, but we have trade wars, sanctions, conflicts that disrupt cross-border flows. Underneath that, climate and extreme weather or pandemic and health issues that we see. But in general, supply chain and suppliers have fragility that causes disruption. The second is visibility and transparency, or lack thereof, truthfully. So there's not a lot of end-to-end visibility across multiple tiers of suppliers. It's lucky for a company to know tier 1 or tier 2, but do you actually know tier 3, tier 4? Where are those goods coming from? Are the conflict minerals? Are they from countries that are going to create disruption for you? Disruptions could be purely not receiving goods. It also could be what those countries do for your image or brand recognition. There's also limited real-time data integrations. So you don't know what's happening. So you don't know what's happening from your ERP into your ordering to ports, to carriers, and manufacturers. You just don't see what's happening because it's Excel-based and it's old and antiquated. And lastly, under visibility, sustainability and ESG compliance. A lot of that's not happening or it's manual. It's net new and it's a big change and a big push today. And lastly, what I see is technology and data challenges. Clearly at SSCI, this is where we come in and we're really focused. But when you have fragmented systems, ERP is not talking to WMSs, WMS is maybe not talking to TMSs, you truly don't know what's happening. And a lot of times that's a reason for that is data quality and timeliness. You don't know what your data is if it's living in someone's email, so you can't see what's happening, which makes you have poor decision making. But then you're susceptible to things like cybersecurity risks or even just broadly adoption. You don't adopt tools if it's living in silos. So those are the three things I typically see or the disruptions that are happening today.
That's awesome, Rodney. And it kind of brings me to the next question I want to ask, but name some challenges companies face when trying to modernize their supply chain intelligence systems. And maybe Mike, we'll jump back to you for this one.
Sure, yeah. I actually think it's a combination of things, and a lot of it has to do with kind of internal attitudes or understanding. So it's a blend of kind of indifference and fear, or maybe in a lack of confidence that investing in a new system is going to actually improve their business. So companies have just dealt with whatever their issues are for so long that they think it's just a part of doing business, or they think that their challenges are so multifaceted and complex and unique that there's really no solution out there that's going to be able to solve their problems. Or finally, it may just be a belief that the big challenges only happen once in a great while, so it's no big deal and not to worry about it. And I don't think there's necessarily an understanding that this isn't just a risk avoidance of things such as stockouts, but actually an opportunity to be much more profitable and much more responsive to what their customers and what the market may be able to produce for them. And it's just an opportunity, really, I think, for companies like ourselves and even like sessions like this to help do a better job at cutting through the clutter so that companies can understand the tools that are out there and understand exactly what they're able to do for them, because I think sometimes people have been oversold on the capabilities of these solutions, and they understand exactly what they are and how they can actually help their specific business. Then I think they can overcome a lot of those challenges of selling the need to invest internally.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And, I think Sage Supply Chain Intelligence kind of addresses some of these areas. And I think seeing is better than hearing sometimes. So I'm actually going to pass it over to Mallory to give a quick demo of the product itself. So handing it over to you, Mallory.
Okay. All right. Well, as Rodney mentioned, our software, Sage Supply Chain Intelligence, is a source-to-deliver platform that connects sourcing, ordering, and logistics into automated workflows with an RFQ module to streamline supplier selection, an order management system to automate execution, and real-time logistics tracking for full visibility. We help companies cut costs, reduce delays, and build more resilient supply chains. So first off, with our request for quote module. The request for quote module simplifies supplier sourcing with bid collection, comparison, and insight. You can turn complex sourcing into a competitive advantage. This module automates the process of gathering, comparing, and selecting supplier bids. And this means procurement teams move faster, negotiate smarter, and secure the best suppliers without the paperwork headaches. Moving on to order management, this module provides a single source of truth for every purchase order, from creation to fulfillment, reducing errors and improving collaboration. From purchase order creation to invoice matching, our order management system eliminates silos and manual work. Automated alerts keep stakeholders aligned, while real-time analytics give you full control over costs, timelines, and supplier performance. The customizable workflow allows our customers to control what steps to automate, expectations on deliverables, and activity tracking to maintain visibility for every change along the way. The files, messaging, and tasks section keep the team centralized and organized in one location, managing each purchase order as one pane of glass along with suppliers, freight forwarders, and quality control. Finally, our real-time logistics module ensures that you always know where your shipments are with live carrier updates. You know exactly where your goods are and what risks might delay them. Our logistics tracking integrates live feeds from carriers to give you end-to-end visibility. With predictive insights, you'll see the issues before they become disruptions. And finally, one second, there we go. These modules feed into our advanced BI tool, giving stakeholders visibility to the information they need to perform their jobs. From an open order report to supplier performance to container tracking data, you can easily identify bottlenecks, reduce delays, and improve supplier performance and costs. These reports are customizable and user-friendly, which helps them to support all users from the purchasing manager to the receiving team. Using comprehensive reporting allows teams to optimize their processes and shift from firefighting to proactive planning, improving resilience and customer satisfaction. So at the end of all of this, the source to deliver technology helps you cut costs, increase speed, and build resilient supply chains. With sourcing, ordering, and logistics all in one intelligent platform, you'll never have to wonder where your goods are, what they cost, or when they'll arrive. And with that, I will hand it back to Jenny Lynn.
Awesome. Thanks, Mallory. And just one moment. Okay, I think my screen is sharing here. So that was the demo, and it brings it back to our panelists. And the question I want to pose for you guys is, what does effective vendor collaboration look like in a data-driven supply chain? And I think, Andrea, if you could give me your insights on that one, that would be great.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. So before we go in, let's take a step back and understand what's not effective vendor collaboration. Traditionally speaking, vendor collaboration has been very reactive instead of proactive. Talking to what my colleagues Mike and Rodney has been saying, you're chasing multiple email threads, maybe working in outdated spreadsheets and hoping suppliers flag issues in time. But hope is not a strategy. So if you want to have a data-driven supply chain, collaboration has to be proactive, has to be data-driven and quick, because in this day and age, speed really matters. And in the supply chain, one day delay in communication can really snowball into weeks of disruption downstream. And this is exactly why we built Sage Supply Chain Intelligence, right? This solution gives both buyers and vendors shared real-time visibility when it comes to the first mile of your supply chain. It takes the lag out of collaboration, so that way you can really focus on working together on today's reality and not on last week's outdated spreadsheet. And that's how I would really define an effective vendor collaboration looks like in today's stage when it comes to data-driven supply chain. And that's, yeah, if you want to pass it on to the next, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah. So next question here is, what are the best practices for setting performance benchmarks with suppliers? I think maybe Mike, you could take this one.
Sure, I can do that. And I don't think it really matters what industry you're in. I mean, the obvious metric has to do with really being on time and in full. So being able to make sure that the product you've ordered is going to get there when you had it originally been committed to get to you, and that what quantity you've ordered is going to be brought to you in full. But related and kind of an important requirement that sometimes we don't think about as much as we just have to admit the reality that sometimes that doesn't happen. And so we need to have good expectations set and requirements really set, that any anticipated shortage or late delivery, you're notified of that within a predefined number of days. So whatever that is based on your specific situation, your manufacturing or your distribution requirements, that you have time to react to that, to make those adjustments. And even some of the things that were shown earlier and discussed earlier, obviously having that additional visibility yourself to be able to check on that is obviously important. And then equally, or maybe even more important, is meeting the quality and compliance requirements and providing the documentation in an easy to consume fashion. So you want to make sure that when you're setting performance benchmarks for your suppliers, you've defined what those requirements are, and in turn defined how you want the proof of meeting those requirements has been provided. So, there's a couple of them, there's many others depending on your industry, but you must make sure that you and your supplier are clear on what those are. So if tight timelines are typical, if you're operating in some sort of just-in-time environment, then there has to be clear incentives or consequences if those things are missed. So you're not just going, oh, sorry, we'll try better next time, because that's not acceptable.
Yeah, Jenny Lynn, just to jump in here, this just reminds me of my days when I was in factories, I feel like every month. But when you're doing this, you need to create measurable expectations that align with the actual business goals. And I always like to say cost, quality, service, resilience, sustainability. Those are strong benchmarks that give suppliers targets. It's something in a framework to focus on. But what it also allows you to do is monitor and compare performance. So if you do not have these things, you're not going to be able to do anything. And a lot of times what I see is expectations aren't being set with suppliers. So quality is out of whack, or delivery schedules, and Mike just said on time in full, but if you don't know what that means for you and your business, you're not going to be able to benchmark against it. So it's super critical to be clear across those things with your suppliers and supply chain.
That makes total sense, Rodney. And I think, kind of talking about the movement and all of that, I think it brings us to our last question here. And it's, how do companies balance costs and visibility in their logistics operations? Maybe Mike, if you can elaborate on that one.
Sure, and this one really does depend an awful lot on the business you're in, how critical the supply is and the cost of raw materials or finished goods are. I'm actually in the middle of reading the book Apple in China right now. If you've not read that, it's a very interesting book about how Apple's so much of the business is dependent on China, but there's a number of discussions in there about how they set requirements, sometimes a little over the top, but they set some pretty strict requirements to make sure that they're able to meet what is sometimes an amazing ability to deliver products. But I think that's the same thing with everything else. So the obvious example beyond that one is more like seasonal items. So for example, if you're selling Halloween candy and it shows up, 2 weeks late, you're kind of out of luck. The season's over, versus like if you're selling, I don't know, just regular old chocolate bars, they're late. There's other chocolate bars on your shelf. So that's not really the same sort of issue. So it really depends an awful lot of the type of industry you're in and the seasonality of that industry. I don't know, Andrea, if you want to add anything to that.
Absolutely, Mike. Thanks so much for that example. I feel like it really captures the tension companies face. Like some shipments are truly mission critical, while others may have a little bit more flexibility. So I love those examples, and I definitely have to read the book that you recommended. So thank you so much for that. Where I'd like to build on is the balancing act between costs and visibility when it comes to logistical tracking. We all know visibility today doesn't come for free. The more time tracking you demand from your logistics partners, the more you pay for that service. But on the flip side is that the lack of visibility often comes with hidden costs. So expedited freight, excess buffer stock, or like even reputational risks when customers don't get updates that all add up. What we're seeing from customers is that they don't just want the choice between like a cheap and transparent. They want something where it's a smarter way to align visibility levels with the actual business impact of that shipment. And this is exactly where our product roadmap for Sage Supply Chain Intelligence is headed, right? So one of our customers' phase features, as Mallory pointed out during the demo, is our logistics tracking and how you can really calibrate visibility based on shipment type, cost, and all that, and giving operational teams more control and more insight. So we're also hoping to layer in maybe some more predictive alerts in the future. So you're not just looking at a map of where your container is, but you're also getting proactive alerts as well. But we're really excited. There's a lot of fun things coming up in terms of how we can really give more transparency, visibility, and collaboration when it comes to logistical tracking. And you'll be able to hopefully scale visibility depending on the shipment, which helps companies really protect their margins and avoid those costly surprises that can come up. But yeah, Rodney, if you want to add on to anything as well.
Sure, I was gonna also talk about a book here. I feel like we're nerding out on supply chain books and operations books, but Shoe Dog kind of captures all this around supplier performance, visibility or lack of visibility, cost pressures, and other things. And what I thought about here when you're talking about like balancing costs and visibility within logistics, truly it's one of the hardest trade-offs you have as a company. Visibility tools promise resilience, proactive risk management, but they add technology, they add integrations, they add data costs to your business. And that's really hard. It's hard to layer and understand how that's going to impact you in the bottom line. Way I look at this, it's an approach that's segmenting where you need it most. So critical lanes, let's say going back to the Apple example, Apple produces most of iPhones and MacBooks in China. So you would want to make sure your data, real-time data visibility with IoT sensors or API feeds are on that lane. They have other supply chains that are here in the US that are not as critical. Maybe those non-critical supply chains, you would have lower costs like EDI flows and other visibility that's not as real-time, not as critical, that it's not as big as a burden for your business. But the last thing I would say is you want to do phased approaches here with any technology, right? You don't want to just go all in and put all of your eggs in that one basket, if you will. So start with control towers or lightweight TMSs, and then leverage that over time with more lanes, more team members as you're scaling up, then make it more attainable. What I've seen constantly is data adoption or technology adoption does not happen if you just force it down people's throats. So you want to be thoughtful here with those phased approaches. In that sense, that will help you with that trade-off of kind of like the cost, the visibility, and cost associated with that is getting people aligned and on board. Pass it back to Jenny Lynn.
I'm actually going to pass this one over to Catherine because I know you've been taking a look at the chat. Catherine, you seeing any questions in there that the team should take a stab at?
I don't see any questions just yet. There is one, however, okay, there is one question that has come in. Are there any upcoming enhancements in Sage Supply Chain Intelligence that we should be excited about?
I would say numerous. What's amazing about Sage Supply Chain Intelligence, we are a modern platform that's API first, cloud native, which that means for us is that we could roll out our product updates in a continuous flow. So we don't have to have releases once a year, twice a year, et cetera. A few things that are coming out and that we're launching is number one, intelligent RFQ modules. So what we want to do is be able to predict where there's issues in quotes, so around tariffs, landed costs, or even your suppliers, to make sure you're getting the best possible supplier to produce the products, really to help prevent a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, like, and to future-proof your supply chain. The other thing we're doing is putting intelligence around supplier scorecards, making sure your supplier's performance is what you expect. But then what you can do with that is find other suppliers that are performing better. So we're trying to look around the corner and build a more sustainable and also future-proof supply chain with these two tools.
Yeah, thanks, Rodney. In addition to that, we have a big one coming up this quarter, which is the Sage X3 integration with Sage Supply Chain Intelligence. So this will give customers hopefully a two-way order sync between X3 and Sage Supply Chain Intelligence, plus a one-way supplier and parts data flow into Sage Supply Chain Intelligence, which is super exciting. So that way you don't have to, leave your ERP, which is great for our Sage customer base. In addition to that, we also have our integration with Sage 100 generally available now, which is super exciting as well. Similar as well with that bi-directional integration. So that way your Sage ERP data is talking to our Sage Supply Chain Intelligence. And that way you can really think of Sage Supply Chain Intelligence is that execution layer to bridging that visibility and execution gap that there so happens to be so prevalent within supply chain today. So we're really looking forward to that as well. A bit further out, we're also investing heavily in AI as well, and AI-driven supply chain BI. So we're hoping to transform a lot of the manual reporting and automated into intelligent insights. So where maybe today you might be seeing yourself spending a lot of time in spreadsheets, we're hoping that customers will be able to see risks ahead of time, be more proactive, and take those opportunities within their own control. So really looking forward to that. In addition, we're hoping to get new automation features coming as well, things like bulk milestone management and order ownership reassignment too, designed specifically to save teams hours of manual work. And all these enhancements are aimed at the same goal, so really helping customers collaborate more effectively, help them make faster and more confident decisions, and ultimately run a more resilient and profitable supply chain at the end of the day.
Great, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We have received a few more questions. So the next one is, how is Sage Supply Chain Intelligence implemented with Sage 100?
Through the cloud, simple integration, fast and seamless. So it takes you minutes, if you will, if not hours. So we have native to pull in parts, suppliers, and orders between the systems. I'm Rodney Manzo. You could reach out to me at sage.com, and I could talk through more of those details with you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rodney. And another, looks like we've also have another question that's come in. Is how much is the cost of this add-on?
We try to make it very approachable and affordable. So it just depends on your spend and the users. So it's straightforward pricing and could go anywhere from roughly $2,000 a year on up.
Okay, great. And the next question, how do you see Sage Supply Chain Intelligence helping manufacturers overcome current challenges and drive better outcomes?
Yeah, I'll jump in there again. Our whole goal is to drive ROI, so lower costs, increase faster cycle times, really improve the visibility across the supply chain and that first mile to make it more resilient. So we do have a true ROI on that, and we help get everyone on the same page with the same information, same data, and also show risk before they occur.
Okay, great, thank you. I don't see any other further questions, so maybe at this time we would love to ask the audience. We have a poll question that we would love to get your feedback on, so I'm going to launch that at this time. If you don't mind taking a few seconds and let us know, would you be interested in learning more about supply chain intelligence based on what was presented today? So I'll give everyone about 5 seconds. Okay, great. So based on results, it looks like 38% of the audience said yes, they're very interested. About 31% said they're not sure yet. About 23% of our audience would like to get more information on SSCI, and about 8% said no, not at this time. Okay. And we'd also love your feedback to know how soon would you be interested in evaluating Sage Supply Chain Intelligence for your organization. Again, if you don't mind taking a few seconds, we'd love your feedback. Okay, and based on results, 33% of our audience said they would be interested in learning more about SSCI in the next 1 to 3 months. 25% said within 3 to 6 months, as well as 25% of our audience said they're not sure, and 17% said immediately. So great, thank you so much. And I don't see any other questions at this time. Jenny Lynn, if there's anything else you wanted to add before we close out?
Nope, I think that's perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you.